All right. Um, Good evening, everyone. Um, Thank you for joining us this evening. This is the 6th edition of the ASFI Science Seminar Series for this year, 2023. So I welcome you from wherever you're joining. We have been running this series on journal publishing in Africa. And it has been quite a very interesting experience we have had so far. We have tried to cover different fields. And this edition is the last edition in this series of journal publishing. So it's good to have you. And I believe that we will all have a refreshing experience as we explore what is happening in the social sciences. My name is Bright Wang, and I am the convener of this forum. I have my colleagues here with me. I have Dr. Eman Sob, who is the co-convener, and also have Dr. Ajibola Oladejo, who is the Director of Administration for ASFI. So I'll just give them a few seconds to welcome Eman. Please take the lead.
Thanks, Brian. Welcome, everyone. I am Iman Subha, Associate Professor of Chest Diseases at Al-Azhar University, Cairo, Egypt, and I am the Director of Science and Communication of ASFI. It's nice to meet you today. It's our pleasure to finalize this first 6 months of this year about journal publishing in Africa. And I wish you all enjoyed previous sessions and welcome for the next 6 months. We will speak about funding. Thanks, everyone, and welcome to ASFI family.
All right, thank you, Eman. Ajibola, are you there?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, sir. My name is Dr. Ajibola Oladejo, and I'm the Director of Administration for ASFI. I want to warmly welcome everyone to today's seminar. It's going to be an exciting one, and we are going to really learn from our panelists. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Eman and Ajibola. All right, our panelists are all ready. I will introduce them at the appropriate time, but at the moment, let me give some introduction. Perhaps you're joining us for the first time. ASFI, as we call it in short, is African Science Frontiers Initiatives. African Science Frontiers Initiatives, and you can see on the screen that is the vision of ASFI to raise the next generation of African scientists with the right competencies to drive Africa's developmental and transformational agenda through innovative scientific research. The truth is that there is no society that develops without research. So research is a driving force for any societal development because decisions we make, policy and otherwise, must depend on what works best, what has been tested. So every society requires scientists to drive its development. And where there are no scientists, or where scientists are not performing as expected, development would not materialize. That is the fact. And I don't think we can argue that. Interestingly, I think it was last month, one of our colleagues in this forum shared with us the report from the World Bank, in which they have indicated that Africa requires many scientists to meet its developmental agenda. So Africa faces the double barrel of problems, and that is insufficient number of scientists, and as well as limited capabilities and competencies and infrastructure. So that is why ASFI has come to play our role to bridge the gap. So this vision is very dear to us, and I hope that you align with this. So our mission is to instill excellence in African science through competence acquisition, capacity building, and career development. And ultimately, we want to contribute to African science that tackles Africa's developmental challenges. Across our institutions and research organizations, many times, many Africans pursue research for career development, want to get promotion, and the other motivations. But it is very important to know that research has the primary goal of contributing to developmental conversations, agenda, and material development. And so if in any way our research does not target this aspect, it means that we actually faltering. So please join us as we really make our contributions. No contribution is negligent or is too little. If we put them together, we can really make a big statement. So African research, African science must refocus to tackle Africa's developmental challenges. And on this platform, we stress that fact. We stress it. All right. And to achieve our vision and our mission, we are organizing seminars, as we're having this evening, workshops, and in these forums, we bring up conversations that affect us as scientists, to highlight our problems and find solutions that can help us to work towards improvement. All right. And then we have hands-on courses, and some of you are attending, currently have attended or plan to attend some of our courses. And these hands-on courses focus on different aspects of the scientific research process, from question formulation even to publication and dissemination. So it is important. That we are able to bring these trainings to board to support the growth, improvement of African science. We also have mentoring program, and we have research program, and these research programs are the forums which we try to generate data that can help us to raise conversations like this we have this evening, or to address important issues that affect African scientists. ASFI started in 2020 during the COVID pandemic, and since then we have, through our hands-on courses, we have trained over 1,500 Africans, cutting across over 40 countries in Africa. And our feeling is that the trainings we have outlined and are pursuing are actually welcomed by African scientists. This year, as with other years, we have a working team. And this working team, we put our different programs around this working theme. And for this year, we are looking at research quality, productivity, and impact. And so the seminar we have this evening and we have had since the beginning of this year have been around these issues: quality, productivity, and impact. And so even though we say research is important for development, without quality research, without impactful research, that objective cannot be achieved. So we want to bring forward discussions, trainings that can help us to improve the quality of our research and to make them to be impactful. And then having a critical mind towards the issue of productivity, in which many times we pursue to publish as many papers as possible, to have as many scientific products as possible, which are good. But once that is our goal, to have as many as possible, many times we ignore the issues of quality and impact. So we need a balance. And this year we are discussing around these issues. So we have the schedule of the programs we are working on this year, from our courses to other workshops and other plans we have. So like I said at the beginning, from January to June, we are surveying the landscape of journal publishing in Africa. And from next month, we'll move to the aspect of research funding. Unfortunately, I would say most, I wouldn't say many, but most African researchers face the problem of funding. To the extent that most use their personal income to do research. That is not the way it should be. That is not what it should be, actually. That is a very bad practice. But that is the situation African researchers find themselves. And so the question would be, who funds research? Where are they? How do you access this research funders? How do you make application? We want to look at these issues between July and December. I will come back to that when we are getting close to closing this, to tell you some of the things we are trying to do and to solicit your contribution. One of the courses we have, many of you have been waiting for this course, data analysis. It's not enough to do research, collect data, go to the field, but the research process includes making sense of that data, probing it, understanding it, communicating it. And so in the month of July, last week of July, we'll be spending 40 hours during that week to explore, covering the issues of data collection, how to bring your data, how to clean it, how to edit it, how to analyze it, how to interpret it, how to report, and how to publish. Well, don't miss this opportunity. Don't miss this opportunity. I think it will be a very important addition to your research skills and tools. So if you have not registered, this coming Friday, 30th of June, will be the last date to register for this course. So if you have not registered, please do so and join the course next month. All right, we have the ASFI community, ASFI members, whose which is really very active. If you have not joined, that offers you lots of benefit, that offers you lots of discounts in our trainings. Please join the ASFI membership. Tomorrow we'll be having the second quarterly General Assembly meeting for ASFI members. So if you have not joined, you still have actually 24 hours to join in order to join that meeting. I think it will be a refreshing experience for you. All right, so what are the benefits? We get lots of benefit being part of this community, And for those who are there, they can testify that together we can make a difference. All right, so this evening we are looking at journal publishing in the social sciences in Africa. I will have our panelists ready to pursue the discussion this evening. Let me introduce them. I have the first person here is Dr. Jerry Kwabai. He's a chartered accountant. He's an executive consultant. He's a research scholar. He's a lecturer at the Babcock University in Nigeria. And then we have Dr. Desi Ofosuhene, who is a senior lecturer and a senior member of the faculty, joining us from the College of Distance Education, University of Cape Coast in Ghana. Finally, we have Dr. Olusegun Ewemuje. He's a senior lecturer from the Department of Statistics, University of Botswana, from Botswana. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, this evening we'll be looking through some of these issues in social sciences, and need to be aware when you say social sciences, it's a very broad area. And so we have people who are coming from 3 different fields. Is a limit because we cannot cover everyone, but this will give us an idea of what is happening in this very broad field. And I hope that our discussion will be enriching this evening. So please feel free to contribute when it's time. As you can see, I have muted everyone. But once it is time you want to speak, please do well to raise your hand once it's time, and you will be recognized. All right, our speakers, I hope your bandwidth will allow you to show your video while you are speaking. We very much appreciate that. All right. Okay. Let me start with you, Dr. Ewemuje. You are the first and last on the flyer, but let me start with you. You are joining from statistics. I want to know, in Africa, have you been able to identify what we call the leading journal in your field in Africa?
Okay. Prof, thank you for the great opportunity to be here and to speak with others and to share my experience. Yeah, finding a top journal in social sciences was actually a tough issue because when you compare what we call the top journal here with what is it in the developed world or Western world, we see that we are still kind of should I say we are nowhere in Africa, if I'm permitted to use that word. But of course, one that I find to be more like it is this Journal of Advanced Research, which published in Social Sciences, and it is actually a multidisciplinary journal. And then that has an impact factor of say 1.603. So for that, we could say that's a good journal with the impact factor. Of course, the impact factor I'm quoting here is not just the website, but the Shimago Index factor, which is more recognized. And of course, this journal is based in Egypt. And of course, we have other journals that are also doing fine in social sciences. In Africa, we have a good number of them in of course, Nigeria, South Africa, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe. We have lots of them, but you describe that their impact factor is just ranging between, or let's say from 0.1 to 0.7. And then compared to where you have journals with a very high impact factor, or say, probably we are just starting in Africa. But I believe with this kind of initiative, and then speaking to more, to encourage African journals, will actually take us to where we are supposed to be as Africans. So
all right, I can stop you there. I think we'll come back to some of the issues you're bringing up. Now, let me go to Dr. Kwabai to ask you the same question. Have you identified a leading journal, perhaps in your field or general social sciences that you can mention?
All right, thank you so much. I think the last speaker, something high-ranking journals in Africa, specifically when it comes to the area of research in social science, specifically accounting, finance, and economics. It's a struggle. In fact, I tried to search, although we have in Nigeria, in South Africa, in Egypt, but just like he has said, the impact factor is nowhere to write home about compared to our foreign-based journals. And for example, Journal of African Economics is housed in Oxford University. The managing editor is a white man. Only one person from Africa as in the editorial board. And you can see the African flavor may be missing in the editorial processes. So we have journals that tilt towards Africa, but we don't have Africans who are in charge in trying to bring the flavor in it. So we do have, but again, the impact factor, like we call it, is not there. So which is also a major problem that we have. We have one in South Africa, which is very good as well, right? But if you compare again, the impact factor really is not to be reckoned with compared to other foreign-based journals in social science, specifically in the aspect of economics, finance, accounting, and maybe political science as well.
All right, thank you very much for that. Then I go to Dr. Desi Ofosuhene. The same question to you. Have you identified, you are joining
Hello,
from
everyone.
the field of, you are joining from the field of education. What is
Management,
your opinion?
yeah.
Education management. So what is your
I'm
opinion
actually
on
in
the
management, yeah.
management? Okay, yeah, please tell us what you think.
Yes, like my colleagues rightly said, there are some journals in Africa, though, but I have personally found it difficult looking for the one with the highest impact or the one with the highest visibility. Though we have journals like South African Journal of Business and Management, we have Journal of Human Resource Management, now Industrial Psychology, and in fact, very few in other areas as well. But when you speak of management journals and human resource management, there are quite few in Africa. So it poses quite a challenge.
Okay.
So you realize that even when we have them, the editorial membership, there's also a question with it. You realize that it's only very few people who are actually on the board of editorialship when it comes to these African journals. So I also rightly agree with my colleagues that sometimes it becomes a challenge really identifying a high impact journal or a top journal in area of management in Africa.
All right. Okay. Let me come back to you, Dr. Ewemuji. In your career, how much do you publish in these African-based journals yourself? When you compare your publication in journals outside Africa.
Okay, so for me, I would say maybe 30% of my publication is in African journal. And that is not perfect because for so many reasons which are obvious, if you don't have, if you are not visible, you will not be known as a researcher. So we still have to pursue those foreign journals. And so because of that, I would say like 30% of my articles are in Africa-based journals because I just have to go there for me to be visible. Yeah.
Okay, so it's your choice of publishing in journals outside Africa based on necessity, requirement from your institution, you mean?
Yeah, it's part of it. Of course, so many institutions in Africa were asked that you must publish in foreign journals, and then also as a person, of course, I don't want to just be a local base, so to say, because there is need for collaboration and the likes. So, and publishing in Africa journals may not actually give me that visibility which I wanted. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Dr. Kwaba, the same question to you. How much do you publish in African-based journals compared to your publication in foreign-based journals?
Yeah, so okay, to be quite sincere, if here the journals have published African and foreign-based, I have more of the foreign-based journals which I publish, you know, and just like you rightly said, it is not far-fetched because the current research journal publishing is skewed towards publishing in foreign-based journal. And like I said, more specific, you see most of my writings are towards, so if I should rate it between 100, I could say about 70% of it is in there. And why am I having the local journal? The idea is that, my university will say, let's have 30% local and 70% international. And what do you mean by international? They mean journals outside Nigeria, which is a problem. And someone can say, no, and journals outside Nigeria may not be on Scopus. So it means high-ranking journals, which is now beyond Africa. So on a percentage, on a rate of percentage, I see myself publishing more in a foreign-based journal than a local-based journal in Africa.
Mm-hmm. So let me get you right. You said about 70% of your papers are published in African-based journal, is it?
No, in foreign-based journal, not Africa, 30. Africa.
So you're the same rate with Dr. Ewemuji that around 30% of your papers are published in African-based journal, eh?
That's right.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Dr. Desi, what is your own account?
Yes, I'm just like my colleagues. I would rather even say it's about 80-20, 18 in foreign journals and 20 in African journals. And most institutions are now, most institutions are now advocating for this Scopus journal, Web of Science and other things. And you hardly find African journals being listed in Scopus or even in Web of Science. And so when you want to publish in Scopus journals, it's very difficult to get journals from Africa. So all things being equal, you're going to fall on these international journals in order for you to be listed in those Scopus journals as recommended by these institutions. So personally, I would also have about 80% in international journals to 20 in African journals.
Okay. Dr. Desi, please stay there. Now you have 80% in journals based outside Africa and 20% in journals based in Africa. Is this division based on your university's requirement, or that is your personal decision to publish? Or what I'm asking, does university require you to publish 50-50 or 30-50 or 80-20 as you have now? What made you to have that choice of publishing 80 and 20 in foreign and
Yes,
African
my
journals?
university advocates for visibility, accessibility, and impact. And so you realize that when you take visibility, for instance, you realize that most foreign journals are more visible than African journals. And when you also look at the impact factor, you realize that they have more or higher impact.
Yeah, Dr. Desi, your line is, let me stop your video and see if your voice can improve. All right. I think she's having some challenges there. Okay. Dr. Ewemuche, you have 70 of your publication in foreign-based journal and 30% in African-based journal. Is that a requirement from your university, or that is your personal choice?
Okay, so thank you, Prof. Bright. Of course, it's not a clear, it's not that clear. The university is not that clear about that. Maybe a particular percentage. But just like she said earlier, there is this advocacy for Scopus, Web of Science, articles publishing in journals which are indexed by Scopus, Web of Science, and the like. So for me to then publish, I have to go for foreign ones. But luckily, I'm beginning to find some of them in Africa, and that's my joy. So I'm also looking forward to publishing more in Africa. Just like I mentioned earlier, I found some, not that many anyway, though their impact factor is still small, but many of them are now striving to be indexed by the Scopus and the Web of Science and the likes, other indexing house that are being recognized by the university. But the question will be the impact factor, because the university is also laying emphasis on the impact factor. So I see, if possible, if African Journal can work on those impact factors, and we as Africans promote that, it will be a good thing to actually come back home and do our own thing in our own way. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, Dr. Kwabai, if there is an attraction, if there is an attraction to publish in foreign-based journal because of the issues of visibility, impact, and accessibility. I'm just wondering, in the field of social sciences, what is the problem for African-based journals not to be able to meet this criteria so that they can be at the same level with foreign-based journals? What is the problem there?
Well, there are several issues actually why African journals may not be able to be at par with at the moment. I'm not saying they cannot, but at the moment, there are several reasons. If I can start, I can just start from the lighter ones. Maybe challenge may include maybe prompt responses to article submission. You know, sometimes you send a journal. That is those that are likely to be good. You don't get quick response. There are some that you can get a response just within 1 day, even accepted. I'm referring to just one that could be compared to high impact journal when it comes to foreign base. So somehow response to article submitted may be a problem. So that is one major issue. There may be also a lack of institutional accessibility, which is what many of my colleagues have said. So sometimes you get to see that university will tell you, we want visibility, we want to be highly ranked by others. You know, I was just going through ranking by Scopus, you know, and I just did a quick one, and I'm trying to look at the ranking based on universities in Africa. And I could see the first University of Johannesburg, University of Pretoria, Northwest University. And if I should dance with Nigeria, the one that seems to be closer is Covenant University, which is about the 7th in the ranking. You know, so, and if I dovetail towards all the journals that they publish, majority of the article published are in high impact journal, that is foreign-based journals. So you could see those issues are enormous. And often African-based journals often operate with limited financial resources, and which is a problem. And that will lead to editorial support, peer review management, typesetting, and marketing is limited. In other foreign-based, they have fundings, they have money for it. So you see people doing a critical review because they know that something good comes out of that. You know, so there are several issues that may come there, even skepticism with people. What about the rigor of review, the quality of peer review processes? Why will I do that? Am I sure I'm going to do the right thing? Why can't I go outside the country and publish in some other places where I know that there should be critical review? Another thing could be English and the dominance of English African journals. You know, sometimes we have adopted the English perspective. There are countries in Africa who are not English-speaking countries, but they are forced to write in those areas. And if you send it to those areas, it may not be accepted. So if I go to the foreign-based journal, they have paid English services that they can be able to typeset for me, convert them, translate it for me to meet their standard, which we don't have in Africa. So if I'm going to do that, that will mean my people will reject it. Assuming I'm from English, French-speaking country, and I have to write later in English, an article. Who will do the rest for me? I don't have good style of English. But if I'm publishing those foreign-based journals, we have those services that we can provide, that they provide, which I can pay some money to it. And I think these are some of the few challenges that I really feel that if you put vis-a-vis, it's predominant in the African-based journals.
All right, Dr. Ewamuje, do you have thoughts on this? While African journals are continuously playing catch up?
Okay, so just to add voice to what my colleague just spoke to, I think another one I would like to add to that is the issue of limited resources. So one of the challenges that I feel these journals may also be having would be funding. And so, and of course, for researchers too, for for us to, as a researcher, we face funding as which is a challenge. Like the one the journal I mentioned earlier, that's a Journal of Advanced Research, which is based in Egypt, is an open access journal, and to publish there, you need to pay the APC. And to do that, many researchers in Africa do not actually have funding for their work. And so we, as Africans, we need, maybe I should say the institution and the government should try as much as possible to support research so that we can also, as researchers, publish in those African journals.
Thank you, Dr. Desi Ofosuhene. Sorry for your network. I think you can put off your video so that perhaps your audio can improve. The discussion we were having while you were out, I will pose the same question to you, is that the universities, as you mentioned earlier, emphasize the issues of visibility, impact, and accessibility. And you mentioned that you find these aspects more in the foreign-based journals than in African journals. And the question I was having was, why is it that African journals do not have, why are they playing catch up with regards to this aspect?
Sorry, very sorry about that. I had a problem with my network. Yes, please, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was asking, given the requirement from your university, as you mentioned, emphasizing visibility, impact, and accessibility in publication. And then you mentioned that African journals lack in these aspects. And my question is, what are the causes for African journals not to be at par with foreign-based journals in these issues?
Well, the causes I may not be able to know offhand, because if you talk about visibility, for instance, you realize that many African scholars are not publishing in African journals. And so we don't really know which journals are even on the top of our disciplines to even select. So if many African scholars are publishing or are encouraged to publish in African journals, then I hope we will get that visibility. And then the editorial processes of many African journals sometimes are ambiguous. Sometimes you send your journals to them, you don't even get any response. For a year, for two, you don't get response. They don't even let you know whether they have received the paper or not. So they just keep you in silence. So all these things actually are affecting our publishing, or the aspiration or the encouragement for us to even publish. So I believe these are some of the problems that is deterring us from publishing in African journals, apart from the visibility and the impact issue.
So there are some structural problems.
Yes,
and if
please.
I just keep you there, who are responsible for this editorial process? Are they African academics, or who are they? Are they people like you?
Some are like me, some are also administrative staff. So for us to be able to actually push this thing forward, I would recommend that scholars like us, researchers like us, will take the mantle and manage these editorial processes, because we understand the impact of research. So if we understand the impact of research, then we'll be able to go through rigorous editorial processes and review processes. But if we leave the scholars themselves or the researchers, leave those aspects to administrators, then maybe we may have problem because probably they may not really understand our problems as we do.
Okay. Dr. Ewumuji, I think it was you that mentioned that one of the journals you identified, unfortunately, has a foreign-based editor, and there is really no visibility of African scholars in the editorial board. Have you thought what could be the cause of this? Why this is the case?
Okay, so actually, I was not the one that raised that, but
oh, you are not the one. Okay.
Yeah, but I also found some journals which are named after Africa. Like I know of one, this scientific African, which is a multidisciplinary journal. Thank God that one is the editor-in-chief of that. I think he's from Ghana. Yeah, I think, of course, that's an Africa. But the journal is based in Netherlands. So you now wonder, why are we taking things that are meant for Africa to those developed world or the Western world to, maybe there is need, my thinking, the journal may be doing that so that they can have a placement among the recognized journal. Because I will share my experience when it comes to publishing some of my my manuscripts. I've had cost to submit paper to a journal, and then the reviewer came back to say this is not more than a classroom exercise. You know, that could be discouraging actually. And of course, the same article, which is more of a theoretical article, was published later in an African journal. And then I applied the same method I apply it to African data, and I sent it to a foreign journal, and it was accepted in one of the top journals in statistics. You know, you now begin to query, why are they saying that is no more than a classroom exercise? So you see biasness in some of these things, which having our own thing may be able to take care of. Because I want to believe, if it were to be an African, that our values and the way we relate with people, I feel may be different, and that affects our work as a person, as Africans, because I felt that statement disturbing actually when I got that statement. And I'm sure if it were to be from an African journal, even if they are going to reject it, they are going to be modest in the way they talk to people. That's my opinion anyway. We as Africans, I just feel we need to rise up and then take those things that we have placed outside there back to Africa. Let them be domiciled in Africa. And then we push it forward and we take our place as Africans, publishing our own thing in our own way, with good quality, definitely.
All right. Okay, Dr. Kwabai, you mentioned that your institution has a requirement to publish also in Scopus or journals with high impact. Now, I'm just thinking, if your institution does not have any requirement as to where you publish, Okay, whether you publish in foreign-based journal or in African-based journals. Would that change your attitude on where to publish? If so, why? If not, why?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Doc. So also, if my institution don't have a requirement to do that, to be very candid, I may not publish in African-based journal in my area, in my field, specifically accounting. As it is today, we do not have high impact journal in Africa, except I want to move towards economics. And this is a problem. And I want visibility as a scholar. I give you an example. Many African authors, including myself, tend towards to prefer publishing in foreign journals. In fact, particularly those journals based in the UK and the US. Personally, as a growing researcher, I favor UK journals because I have received royalties for my published work. In fact, just I think around January or so, I was paid some pounds for publishing in UK journals, which will not be done in Africa. You know, then also I got some funding to publish a particular paper in also the UK journal, which we don't have in Africa. You know, so also aside from that, the high index of it, when somebody cites you, you are happy that your work is going up. The first paper I published, I was started, I just went to Scope before when I go to Scopus, I can't see my name. But because I publish at least 2 to 3 papers in there, when I get there, I'll be happy that wow. So my name is visible, is going up, even though I'm just a growing researcher. So if I should answer directly, the answer is really no. And why? Because the reason I've given. So most African journals do not fall into these categories of high impact and giving us the visibility that we need. Aside university policy, you as an author, as a researcher, you want visibility. As I'm talking to you now, sir, I'm in London, and this is because of a paper that we published, and I was giving funding in a foreign-based journal, which we don't have in Africa. So, Prof, a lot that we need to do within this perspective that can spur Africans to be towards publishing in African-based journals.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you for that. So there are some incentives that encourage you. Okay, Dr. Desi, if your university does not have any requirement on where you publish, would that change your current publishing attitude as to where you publish your papers, in foreign-based journals or in African-based journals?
Thank you very much. I also want impact factor. I also want to be visible as an individual researcher. But just as my colleague said, most of these African journals will not give you that visibility. So even if it were not to be a policy in my university, I would probably publish in African journals though, but I would still want to be visible. So I'll go to external source or an international source.
Mm-hmm. So visibility is an important factor for you.
Yes,
now,
please.
I've heard the three of you talk about Scopus and impact factor. Is it a possibility in the social sciences, Dr. Desi, I want to start with you, that we can generate African-based indices like this that can encourage African researchers to publish in Africa? I mean, the indices Scopus uses or other organizations. Can we have African-based indices like this in Africa?
Yes, we can have. I believe those that have those high impact, they started like some of these African journals. By going through procedural processes, due procedural processes, editorial processes, review processes, they got where they are now. So I believe if African researchers are given the mandate to manage these editorial processes and editorial boards and to manage these journals, I believe we can also get there. It is not far-fetched. we can also get there. With the right mindset and the resources and the knowledge and the impact that we desire, we can develop our journals to be like the top journals that we admire.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Ewomuji. I posted something on the ASFI members forum yesterday. And the motivation for that is that we had a video one of our colleagues posted on that platform. And in this video, there was a speaker who was, I think there was an African meeting, and then he was making comments on how Africa does not control the narratives, even about Africa. And one of the points he mentioned that actually caught my attention was that he said, it is those who own the data that own the narratives. All right. And so in essence, data about Africa's situations are controlled and owned by the international organizations or countries outside Africa. And that is why they can tell us who we are, how we look, what we are, because they own the data. And you as an African, you are in a forum where discussion like this is going about what is happening in Africa. Most of the time, because you don't have the data to support your viewpoint, we make conjectures. And because conjectures are not accepted in a scholarly forum, you end up accepting what is said about you from outside. Now, the tendency of publishing more of our work in journals outside Africa, for the fact that we want visibility, we have incentives. Do you think this will continue to make us to lose grip on our own narratives, because we actually send out what we have to those who are outside Africa? I don't know if you get my point, Dr. Ewomuji.
Thank you, Prof. Wright. Of course, for us to actually get to where every African will be proud of in terms of research, we need to take the bull by the horn. We need to try as much as possible to promote our own thing. Of course, in Africa, it's not that we are not doing fine at all, but when it is compared to what is happening there outside Africa, then we say we are nowhere. But of course, I'm sure every one of us, we know what we call AJOR. That's the African Journal Online. We have this Council for Development of Social Science Research in Africa. These are some of the things we should encourage as Africans to come up and then take their place, and then so that we can give our whole narrative ourselves. And then it is said that if you don't blow your own trumpet, who will? So as Africans, of course, we should encourage promoting our own data sets and make our own narrative ourselves. At first, it may be difficult, but if we persist, I assure you will definitely get there. So I would say it will be good to encourage more of this African Journal Online and all these database, and more to come, even in Africa. And then these should come with good quality. Let them be that they are tested and trusted, so that all of us who run into the foreign stuff can actually come back home and publish in our own journals. And then when we do that, we discover that the impact factor we are talking about will come back to Africa. Because if I'm citing more papers in Africa, the impact factor of those journals will definitely rise. And then I also encourage all journals in Africa to embrace, if to start with all this Web of Science and all the rest, while we are waiting for some other ones to come up in Africa that will be Africa-based. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Elmijo, just hold it there. Have you come across any predatory journal in your field emanating from Africa?
Emanating from Africa, I didn't really take notes, but it is possible. But I see many of them from the Asia, some in Europe, and of course other continents. Probably because I look more into foreign journals than African journals. Maybe that's why I've not been able to pick on anyone in Africa actually, but I've not taken note of such. And you know, when you were asking this question, then I felt that was a good one if I've not actually noticed one in Africa. That's my thinking, but I'm not saying they are not there, but I feel they are not that much compared to foreign-based journals. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Kwabai, have you observed any predatory journal from Africa in your field?
Okay, well, also, I think I do it the same way by the last speaker. I'm not sure I found that because, you know, many of the journals we have in Africa somehow university institutional-based journals, then university-based journals, you know, and these from my perspective or my university perspective, we don't see them as predatory journals. In fact, we put them at category B from our own rating that we do that. So I see more of university-based journals or institutional-based journals in my institute. As a chartered accountant, we have ICANN journals. We also have other university-based journals. So those that may be in that category are those that are called international, even though they're not, they tilt towards Africa, but they are not managed by Africans. In fact, I saw a journal of accounting posted in Asia, but the interest is Africa. And I wonder what kind of journal. So I quickly check. I saw that it's not in Scopus, even though it's similar. It looks like the one I see in high impact journal, really. But so locally in Africa, to be very clear, like you said, I am not sure I've come across that because we have more of university-based and institutional-based journals in my own area or in my own.
Okay, Dr. Desi, the same question to you. Have you come across predatory journals in your field from Africa?
Not really, because I've not been looking at those journals, those predatory journals. Anytime I want to search for journals, I go to Schema, I look for the impact. And so I've not really paid attention to those predatory journals in Africa. And those that I've also seen, they are mostly of Europe and then Asia. I have not really looked at it from the African journals perspective.
Okay. Now, we have highlighted several things now. The fact that African journals continue to lag behind when you compare them to journals from other countries. I think it's best now to discuss what steps can we take now to begin to change the narrative. How can African journals begin to catch up? properly. Dr. Daisy, let me start from you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I believe we can start by improving access to visibility and impact. When we are encouraged, or when institutions encourage researchers to publish in African journals, we can identify some journals and then improve access, visibility, and impact. I believe we can get these journals representing each field in the social sciences. And then I also believe in prompt responses, because I have some personal experiences. You send journals to, or you send manuscript to journals in Africa, some hardly even acknowledge receipts. Some you write to them to find out whether they have actually received, and nobody is responding to you. Some will only bring your paper back without any comments. They will reject the paper without any justification, without any comment. So I believe when we take due processes in terms of review processes and then editorial processes, it can also encourage us to publish in them, and then we can get those impact and visibility that we are looking for. I would also suggest collaboration. We also need, as African journals, to collaborate. The journals themselves should collaborate, especially those in Agile and other African journals. Once they come together, I believe with that strength, we'll be able to have high impact journals, and it will be attractive for African researchers to publish in those journals.
All right, thank you. Dr. Ewumuje, where do we go from here? What should be done? What do we need to improve African journals in every aspect to begin to have attraction from Africans, and also to meet global standard of publishing?
Thank you, Prof. Right. Just as mentioned by Dr. Daisy, I think we need to improve our editorial processes in Africa journals. And then I see that many African journals also lack resources. So if possible, which I know it is possible, so it is time to begin to fund African-based journals more. I know some institutions in Nigeria are doing that. Some in other parts of Africa are also doing that. So if government can put in money into funding Africa-based journals, I think that will go a long way. And also, we've been talking about impact factor. Yes, I think it is high time as researchers in Africa that will begin to look for those quality journals in Africa and then begin to publish in there. If we do that, that will increase the impact factor of these journals coming from Africa, and then Africa will come to its place where we should be. And I think lastly, maybe I should speak to the fact that collaboration, yeah. We need to collaborate. And then when we do that, we should also try as much as possible to promote indigenous researches, and then try as much as possible to publish these ones in African journals where they will be appreciated, and then will also be contributing to the impact for those journals. Thank you.
All right, yeah, Dr. Kwabai, the same question goes to you, but before I let you speak, please, everyone who is listening, I think we have been having a very interesting discussions. I see some hands we are raised before. Please keep them raised because soon we will come to the audience to get your input. Just to let you know that very soon we will open the floor for the audience to contribute. All right, Dr. Kwabai, what way forward? You have categorically said, even if your institution does not have any regulations, you will face foreign words. How can African journals give you attraction to change your decision?
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. My other colleague have mentioned that, but just a few ones that said I won't repeat what they have said. One thing that's very key is we need to strengthen the African research ecosystem. And how do you go about it? Number one, mentorship, which you have talked about in ASFI severally, is a very important key perspective if we must come back to Africa. And I give an example. When I try to look at the ranking authors in Africa, I could start from Nigeria. Based on Scopus, one of the highest ranking Nigerian author is Salisu Hafiz from the University of Ibadan. I think he's not in Johannesburg somehow. He's having about 87 scholarly outputs, having a citation of 1,282 citation. His H index 28. But sadly, none of his 87 were published in any African social science journal. Number two, Gupta. Those who are in accounting and research and economics, Gupta is a well-renowned researcher. He has over 719 scholarly outputs, 14,000 citation, 57 high index. Sadly, again, none was published in any African social science journal. Mentorship. If today I want to publish with Salisu or with Gupta, they wouldn't want me to put that paper in an African journal. So it means that our high-ranking authors in Africa must begin to set the pace for mentorship. Let me pick this person and say, let's publish in this journal. That's very important. I want visibility. If I publish with Gupta, my citation would increase because he's an acclaimed author, but he wouldn't want that. So I seen one of the things, like I said, mentorship from Africa renowned authors. They must channel their mind towards building Africa, which is very important. Number two, we must enhance our editorial standard. So African journals should prioritize maintaining high editorial standard. And this is by implementing some rigorously in their peer review, adhering to some international publication guidelines. These are very important that we can do. Then we can professionalize our journal management as well, like we have rightly said by my few colleagues in there. So we need to appoint qualified, experienced authors, editorial board that cuts across Africa, because when Africans are in there, they understand our uniqueness in our writing styles. We can seek for indexing and accreditation. That way, we can, and one of the authors talk about AJOR, African Journal Online, African Citation Index. These are key metrics that we can develop in Africa. So if that happens, the so-called ranking, even though I publish in foreign journals, but we don't, who rank them? Who made it to be high ranking? The metrics are not from Africa. So we can have our own. Lina to mention, collaboration is very, very important. If I collaborate with somebody in Ghana or in Kenya, we can agree to publish in African journals. So this I see as important. Then another thing again, improve online presence. So a few of them will say, please send to the auditor. Why can't I go to your website and create a login detail as an author and drop them, and I would track the process of the process of my editorial processes. We don't have them here compared to high-ranking journals. Then again, like they said, we must establish research network. And I'm so happy with ASFI. There must be a research network, mentorship put together. Then more importantly, providing language support. And like I said, not every researcher in Africa can speak English. So there must be a service support by journal houses in Africa. That way, when I finish my paper, somebody can do my typesetting, my editing, and I'll pay a token that can be standardized, to be on the same pedestal with those in the foreign journals. So I see this as a way forward that we can do. I think these are a few comments I think we can do to strengthen our African publication.
All right, just hold it there, Dr. Kwaba. I think it's an important point. The last question I will have for you is based on the issues you have raised that need to be taken into account or put in place for us to make a headway. In your own estimation, how long from now do you think African-based journals in the social sciences can catch up with journals in the social sciences based abroad, the high-ranking journals you have in mind? How long from now do you think African-based journals can catch up?
Yeah, so I mean, put it from this perspective, it may take a long time, but yet we can have a strategic plan. Say, let's have a 10-year plan or 20 years plan, but put them in milestones. Just recently, I'm the managing editor for my journal in Bangkok, so we want to index our journal, and they give me the criteria. There will be consistency in publishing. At least if you say your issue is 2 issues per year, then let's see about 2 to 3 years issue that you have done so far that are consistent in it. So it means that if you have a 5-year criteria, then we can begin to say, what do we do from this perspective? So we can have 20-year long-term plan, strategic plan, but put them in milestones, say the next 5 years and the next 5 years. So really, if you ask me, with intentionality by scholars, imagine having a lot of people in Africa like Bright doing what you're doing, then I'm sure there could be we can reduce the years that we can do that. So if I should answer your question directly, if we are intentional in the next 5 years, 10 years, we can begin to match ourselves with developed journals. By the way, sir, those who are making those journals to be high ranking, they're Africans. They're Africans. So imagine them channeling their focus to Africa to do mentorship. If we do that, sir, in the next 5 to 10 years, I see our research and output being in the same limelight with those acclaimed foreign journals as well in social sciences.
Thank you. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, Dr. Daisy, the same question to you. How long from now do we catch up?
Yes, I also believe that when we have good strategic plan put in place, we can catch up. In about 5 to 10 years, we can do that because we have good researchers in Africa. We have a lot of, in my university, for instance, we have a lot of young professors, young senior lecturers who are publishing here and there. And so when we encourage them that this is what we are going to do, they will be able to support the idea, and in no time we can get there. So it's just making our mind and then putting in place some resources. We should be able to do that within 5 to 10 years. And again, that should also come with incentive. If they are going to say that when you publish in African journal, we are going to maybe increase your impact factor, or it is going to be associated with your promotion, you realize that we will be encouraged to be publishing in African journals. And in no time, you also get those visibility and those impacts.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Dr. Ewomoje, please let your voice be heard. From now on, how long do you think we can catch up?
Well, 5 to 10 years will be a good, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Oh, okay. So 5 to 10 years will be a good time frame to look at. And then just like they said, all we need to do is be intentional about this. We just have to be intentional, and then we follow it strictly. And then even if it's going to be more like a research goal for all researchers in Africa, I assure you will get there. We just need to come back home, publish. You can stay anywhere you are around the world, publish in African journals, and then you see those impact factors going up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think we'll end it there for the panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, we have really had interesting discussions, and I think the discussion we have had this evening is in line with what we have also heard from the different fields we have covered during these 6 months. And what are the issues? African journals are lagging behind, and there are issues around that, structural issues, requirement from the universities, and so on and so forth. There is a way out, and the panel this evening agree in that we can catch up with foreign-based journals, but we need to have a strategic plan of where and how to go. All right, I will not be the judge. You be the judge whether it is possible. But now, let me hear your voice. I have the first hand here is Kezia Mkwisu. Kezia Mkwisu, please unmute yourself and let's hear your voice.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Bright. And also thank you for contributing your points. I've been hearing them and very interesting indeed. You've covered a lot. And for me, my question is very simple. Those that are in the universities, I believe they have the ability. They are the ones that sit on the tables. They should be able to flip the ratio. Instead of the ratio being for foreign, that should be flipped for local. So instead of 20/70, then you just flip it. I'm sure if you flip it, just like other contributors have said, you see the rise. You need to flip. This, I believe, is within your capacity. You're the ones that are in the universities. You sit there, you make decisions. So for you to give the opportunity for young researchers within Africa, then we need those in the university who are in leadership positions to actually come to the table and address this situation. Because I liked the way Dr. Daisy mentioned that these journals that are high impact, they have started years. Of course, they have started years, but in Africa, I believe we can do the leapfrog because the technology is here. It is with us. And therefore, I believe Africans are there, they're intelligent, and they can come around and be able to have their own journals, upgrade themselves. I agree also on the editorial issue. The editorial team should also comprise mostly of Africans, because if the journals are of Africa, they should be for Africans and they should be run by Africans. And that is where you can have the control. And because one of the contributors talked about control, you cannot have control if the editorial team is not of a higher percentage Africans. We have a lot of doctors, we have a lot of professors within the African continent. So I believe they can come together. This can be very possible. 5 to 10 years is too long. Why? It should just be within 2 years or 3 years. I think 5 to 10 years is just too long. You need to revisit that. The capability is there. So I leave it up to all of you. And what I liked about also the experience shared here by Owen Wache from Botswana, he talked about his article, how he presented it within the African journal, and it was rejected. But then again, when it's submitted to a foreign journal, it was accepted. That kind of experience, I've also experienced that. And I was very sad that an African journal actually could not take in our article, and our article ended up being accepted in a foreign journal. Yes, we were happy that it was accepted in a foreign journal, but again, that is also a sad note that within the African context, you have these doctors and professors that do not have the ability to vision which is a best paper to actually put it on your journal. So we need to have that. We need to be able to have peer reviewers that know and can see articles that are actually very potential. So there's that issue as well. And I think it can be covered within the aspect of mentoring. We need to have mentoring. The mentoring should start from the professorial level. Even the professors, they need mentoring, and the doctors, so that this can help young researchers and even upcoming students who are not doctors yet to be able to harness what Africans can and what Africans can improve in order to take control. So thank you very much for that.
All right, thank you, Kezia. Much appreciated. Well, I said earlier, I will not be the judge. All right. Let everyone be the judge here. So we have argument about 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Realistically, as Africans, what is your situation? We have started ASFI over 3 years now. We have had our experiences. To be frank with you, it's not an easy journey, all right? But we are motivated to make a difference. It's not an easy journey. In as much as there is motivation to go in the direction of change, change in itself is a complex entity. It's complex. And this is particularly so when you deal with human beings. But when you go beyond the persons, the scientists, and then you venture into the systems, the institutions, you begin to see bigger structural issues that are there. We have to be very realistic, colleagues, about our problems, and then see how we can make it a reality. My ultimate desire is that Africa's voice could be heard again. Our voice was loud many centuries past, and then something happens. I don't know. Well, I don't want us to go into that discussion because it's a discussion of blame game. But something happened that's in every indicator of development, whether in science, whether in society, Africa has remained the baby for a very long time. So you have to think it yourself. Do you want a change? Do you think change is realistic? Can we make it? Is 10 years realistic? Is 5 years realistic? Is 2 years realistic? But I tell you, it is doable. And I like the part, the consensus from the panelists that every journal started from a place and they moved to where they are. We need a change. And if we don't have this change, I don't think the needed contribution of science to development of Africa will not easily happen. So let's wear our coats, let's take our guns, let's take our pens, and let's see how we can contribute. Now, for an organization like this, we'll try to bring up these conversations. These conversations will help us to probe ourselves and then develop motivations to see where we can contribute. But the old saying is that you can take the horse to the water or river bank, but you cannot force it. You cannot force it to drink. And so we have different experiences. Sometimes it can be discouraging, but we don't want to be discouraged, because if there is anything Africa doesn't want at this time, it's discourage people. We need people who are ready to move regardless of what is there. For the story we plan today will be told maybe many centuries ahead, that we all played our role. But the bottom line is that where we are as a people in science and in every facet of life, it's not the best place to be. Let's put our hands on deck and let's make a change. I believe we can do it. I believe we can do it. And then the story of Africa can be told in a very pleasant way again. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this evening. And I would like to appreciate the panelists again. Dr. Jerry Wabai, the chartered accountant, is executive consultant, is a research scholar, is a lecturer from Babcock University in Nigeria. And then we had Dr. Desi Ofosuhene, a senior lecturer and a senior member of the faculty, joining us from the College of Distance Education, University of Cape Coast, Ghana. And finally, Dr. Olusegun Ewemuje, senior lecturer, Department of Statistics, University of Botswana in Botswana. All right, let me finish up before please don't leave. Don't leave. We are not done yet. Don't leave. All right. This is one of the things we do. Dr. Waro's research tips and tricks, and this is the 17th edition. If you have not been following us, then you have a lot to cover. ASFI has a YouTube channel where all our programs, like this evening seminar, are all uploaded. And there, if you have missed previous editions of research tips and tricks, please go there and find them, refresh yourself. The 17th edition of the tips and tricks is coming up on the 30th of June, next Friday. And that will be thinking through a thesis, purpose and structure. Please join us as we go through that. Then I would like to inform you that, as I mentioned earlier, today is the last edition that covers the series on journal publishing in Africa, Starting from next month, July, we'll be moving in the area of surveying the landscape of research funding in Africa, July to December. We want to understand what is happening in the area of funding. And I think that is one of the things that also was highlighted this evening, the lack of funding at various stages of the research process. Can it be overcome? Can we find where they are? Can we convey a platform that can push this discussion towards improvement? Now, we need your voice. All right. What are your stories about grant and research funding in Africa? What are your stories? You have stories of failure. You have stories of success. We want you to come. Tell us those stories. We want to hear them. We want to convene panels like this, starting from July, to discuss the issues around this. How do we get motivation? How do we learn from each other? And so on and so forth. If you're interested, we have the email on the screen there. My colleagues will put it on the chat box. Please write us to let us know. And then we will get in touch with you. And so for that, in the next edition of our seminar series, the July will be the Grand Delight, what it feels to win a grant. And I know you want to hear this. You want to hear this. If you have not won before, please, if you have won before, it's a refreshing experience. Come and hear from the horse's mouth. We have a panel of those who have struggled and have overcome the process to the extent of winning grants. And so please join us on the 30th of July for this edition. Now, what I mentioned earlier, we have the issue of who owns the data, controls the narrative. That is a fact. No one can doubt that. In many facets of African life, we don't own the data. The data is owned by the West because they collect data. And so we have sent out 2 surveys to collect data. One on research quality, productivity, and impact in Africa. And the other one is research funding in Africa. Unfortunately, I have to say, we sent this to over 7,000 of those on our contact list. I was just told by Dr. Neda Essa, who is managing this with her team, that less than 150 people have completed this this survey. Less than 150 people, and that is discouraging. And then you ask yourself, this evening we have discussed, it's going to take 2 years, it's going to take 5 years, it's going to take 10 years. Are we realistic, really? Because our attitudes seem not to agree with our motivation. You know, over 7,000 and less than 150 people. And so how can you own the data? How can you control the narrative if this is our attitude? And so please, we would still like to remind you, participate in this, share it to your colleagues, encourage your colleagues, bring everybody on board. Let's get this done. Let's get this data. This will form a lot of the conversation. This will form our argument, even to stakeholders, even to funders, even to government. This is our situation. How do we improve? That is how societies improve. There is no other way. And so if we are this evening say, well, 5 years, 10 years, we need to be realistic, because that actually is counterintuitive if we eventually do not take the active steps to participate in the things that will make those stories change. So just want to encourage you. Please join us to do that. All right, this is where we will come to the end of this evening. Thank you once again, and I wish you a wonderful week. Join us on Friday to discuss on the tips and tricks. And for ASFI members, just to remind you that tomorrow at 5 p.m. GMT will be your second quarterly meeting. See you there if you are part of the bandwagon. Thank you, colleagues, and have a very good evening. Now you can say something. You can unmute yourself and make your voice heard.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
God bless.
Yes, Dr.
Thank
Desi,
you.
everyone.
Dr. Derek
Thank you.
Olai, and Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Big thank
bye-bye.
you to
Thank you
the
very much.
organizers, the entire team. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It has been a
Good
great
to have you all.
opportunity for me to attend this meeting.
Thank you, Dr.
so
Bright.
much
Thank
for my
you.
look forward to attend
Thank you.
another
Bye.
meeting. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Kwaba. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.